In today's video, we're going to kind of re-look at the Rams-Saints no-call NFC Championship game from 2018. Now, this video is from Secret Base. Their videos are awesome. Love their videos. Link will be in the description. Man, their channel is awesome. Very high-quality stuff. So I wanted to do this because this was January 20th. So we recently had the anniversary of this, the 4-year anniversary. And this game is one of those pivotal moments where I remember every part of this game. I was at the game, and as we watch the video, I will kind of break down what it was like in the dome, what it felt like afterwards, just kind of the whole thing. So let's go ahead and take a look.
It's January 20th, 2019. We're at the Superdome in New Orleans, where the Saints and Rams are in overtime, battling for a trip to Super Bowl 53. Greg Zuerlein is setting up for a 57-yard field goal attempt. A kick that, if made, wins it for the Rams. It ends the Saints' season, and even worse, it would cement one of the most controversial outcomes in recent NFL history. To understand everything this kick represents, we need to rewind.
Oh man, I mean, it's such a brutal game.
Okay, hold up. Before we focus on this team or this guy, we need to address the elephant that just entered the Superdome.
Yeah, the pass interference
no call heard round the world.
All right, so let me kind of give you the whole game, right? So at this time, I wasn't living in New Orleans yet. I'm still living in Mississippi at the time, and I had been going to every Saints game. So me and a friend went to every game, and I'll tell you this, when you go to games, like, your fanhood just is on a different level. You know, you feel the arena, you feel the crowd, you feel the city. You feel the whole, like, lifeblood of the team. And so this season, you know, I'm all in on the Saints. The Saints are incredible this year. I think we had, like, the 3rd best offense and the 5th best defense. Like, we were really, really good. NFC Championship game. So this is to go to the Super Bowl. We're up, I think, 10-0 to start the game. And I think we're up 13-10 or something like that at halftime. So we're winning. We're dominating. Jared Goff's on the other sideline. Jared Goff hasn't played that well at that point. You know, he was still kind of a question mark on the Rams team. We felt like we were going to win the game. I remember at halftime, or it might have been in the first quarter, where I sit, there's like a bar right behind it. So you just, like, real quick, run down, grab a drink, go back to the seats. I remember, I think it was the first quarter. We ran down to get a drink. And in the line, by the time I got to the front of the line, I already had like 3 drinks in my hand because everyone was buying everyone drinks. Everyone was so happy. Everyone was so pumped up. Everyone in that area was already partying like it was the Super Bowl. I mean, it was just like, you want a drink? Here you go. 5 drinks. Pass them back. Pass them back. Pass them back. I mean, the atmosphere was amazing. So we're peaking. We're at a absolute fever pitch at the end of the first quarter. Fast forward to this, and now we're thinking we're tied. Holy shit! You know, like, I cannot believe the Rams are even in this game. Is what I was thinking. Then we're in this situation. All right, look at how good of a situation this is. You're on the 13-yard line, the 14-yard line. You've got the best quarterback in the NFL. 1:49 seconds to go. 20-20. If you get a first down here, you take the last kick. That's what we're thinking in the stands. We either score a touchdown and then Jared Goff's got to beat us, or we just get a first down and this game's over.
With 1:49 seconds left in the fourth quarter, things looked like this. Also a tie game, but Saints ball at the Rams' 13-yard line. New Orleans put themselves in the always enviable position where a first down here would let them kneel down a few times, kick a field goal as the clock expired, and pack their bags for the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
That, without question, should have happened.
Yes.
Drew Brees, more on him later, looked for Tommy Lee Lewis. Rams corner Nikel Roby-Coleman also looked for Lewis, and, more importantly, did not ever look for the ball. The corner turned the Saints wideout into a physics.
I mean, it's crazy. It's so crazy to see this and to know they missed it, to know they missed the call. This is probably the most egregious pass interference call that's ever not been called. This is number one because of the stakes. This missed call would be bad in a high school game. But the fact that this missed call, the domino effects. Now you could say maybe he would have missed the kick, maybe whatever, you know. But let's just pretend like he makes the 20-yard field goal. Well, let's. This kick sends the Rams to the Super Bowl. This kick gives us a terrible Super Bowl where the Patriots won, what was it, 10-3? Do the Patriots hold the Saints to 3 points? Probably not. What if they win? What if Breeze gets 2 Super Bowls? You know, what if Breeze gets there, beats Brady? Breeze might have retired after this. Like, you never know what would have happened. What would the Rams look like? You know, what would Sean McVay's legacy be if he doesn't get to the Super Bowl? Is he still the same boy wonder? Is he still the same boy genius? What's Jared Goff's legacy? You know, if Goff, what's Brady's legacy if Brady doesn't get another Super Bowl win, or if the Saints put it on him? You know, what the amount of stuff that this does moving forward for everyone involved, for Sean Payton, for Drew Brees, for the franchise of the Saints, the franchise of the Rams, the franchise of the Patriots, Tom Brady's like everyone was affected because of this call right here.
Problem, as Lewis spiraled through the air without having any chance of catching the ball. Rule 8, Section 5, Article 1 of the 2018 NFL Rulebook describes pass interference as any act more than 1 yard past the line of scrimmage that significantly hinders an eligible player's opportunity to catch the ball. If you prefer something more specific, Article 2-E says you can't cut off the path of an opponent by making contact without playing the ball. So feel like that might apply here. Shit, could even warrant a flag for the hit being high. Anyway,
I've already kind of said this, but this is as bad of pass interference as you'll find. I mean, it's hard to find a pass interference that's more deserving of pass interference. Didn't have his head turned around, was not going for the ball. Ball wasn't even close. It wasn't within like 3 yards, 4 yards. This is just a straight up tackle of a receiver trying to catch the ball. Easiest call ever. And you can see right here, you can see over here, the referee is there. Like the referee, it's not like this is happening with no one around. The referee is right here on the goal line.
Our buddy down here in the corner just said incomplete, nothing more. The Saints sideline understandably couldn't believe it. Likely, no one watching this could. That said,
okay, so as in the stands now, so in the stands, it was a riot. I mean, it was. Remember the fever pitch I talked about in the first quarter? So this is hours after that, hours of drinking, hours. This is New Orleans, for God's sakes. People, it is riotous in the Dome, and I was really wrapped up in the game. But after the game, and I'll talk about that a little bit as this video progresses, it had the feeling of like a dangerous situation. The air, the vibe, everything in the arena was dangerous. You never want to be in a situation like you know how like at a party or something or a bar, there's one person who's really out of control, and you know that anything could happen in that moment. You never want to be around that person. You know, like you don't want to be next to that person at the bar, or you don't want to be in the car with that person or whatever. Now imagine there's 80,000 of those people, and you're going through elevators, you're going through escalators, you're going through tiny hallways, you're going through, you're filing out of the same exits. Like, you're in such tight quarters with so much volatility, and then you've got people just screaming. So then you have other people screaming at them, and then it really gets, in situations like that, you can feel it in the air that something bad's about to happen.
There's still time on the clock. The Saints season is not yet over. But Saints fans right here aren't just thinking about the pain from earlier tonight. They're feeling something that's been building over time. the playoffs have not been the kindest to New Orleans.
That's something else I was talking about with like the domino effect. So this set off a chain of like bad endings for the Saints. The Minnesota game ended in overtime. Obviously the Minnesota Miracle. So all of a sudden, what we remember now is this stretch of like 3 seasons that ended painfully on the last play of the game. What we should remember is one of them didn't. One of them went to the Super Bowl, and all of a sudden that looks different. Breeze having like, think about how much different the Saints dynasty would have been. Is the Saints get to the Super Bowl, maybe even win the Super Bowl, then the Saints get back to the division, lose to Minnesota. Like, just looking at it changes that era for the Saints. Breeze and Peyton being able to say they got to the Super Bowl twice, won 2 Super Bowls, got to the divisional whatever this many times, all this stuff. It's painted in a very different light.
There's an above-average sense of what could have been with these modern Saints dating back to 2006, the year they got a new head coach and a new quarterback. Sean Payton and Drew Brees were a perfect duo from day one. Their inaugural season in New Orleans saw them march to the franchise.
They got smoked by the Bears. Smoked.
Franchise's first ever conference championship game, just 1 year after going 3-13. Then, just 3 years later, they returned to the NFC Championship, this time won it, then handed Peyton Manning his own ass on a platter in the Super Bowl. But the next year was Beastquake. And the next year was
Alex
the Catch
Smith.
3. Bountygate followed that. Marquez Colston's questionable chicanery followed that. Then 3 7-9 seasons seemed merciful in comparison to Stephon Diggs making the Saints defense look like children at the worst possible moment. This isn't an attempt to ruin the day of Saints fans. It's to show just how hard, how soul-crushing it can be to try and win a Super Bowl.
It's tough.
The Saints have had many great teams under Peyton, but as the most important constant approached the end of his career, it became harder not to wonder if they should have won more. That
For sure.
made the
No doubt about it. I mean, I think the Saints were the best team in the NFL that year. The year that the Rams won, when this video's happened. The Saints were the best team, for sure. I think they beat the Patriots, and they, deservingly win the Super Bowl that year. A couple other years, like the Minnesota Miracle game, the Saints weren't that good. And I think the Saints would have got drug in Philadelphia the next week, just like Minnesota did. So that one doesn't hurt as bad as this one, because it does feel like we deserved something and we didn't get it. We didn't get the opportunity to have our Super Bowl 2 weeks. And I'll talk about that in a little bit as well.
The 2018 season particularly interesting in New Orleans. Despite the heartbreaking end to 2017, this team displayed serious reason for optimism. Brees' life became so much easier flanked by not 1 but 2 Pro Bowl running backs from a year ago. Marshawn Lattimore immediately headlined a secondary so young and talented, but tragically remembered for that. Brees' latest go-to receiver, Michael Thomas, was coming off a Pro Bowl season, along with everyone else mentioned. In the eyes of people smarter than me, the Saints had positioned themselves nicely yet again, but how did it translate? Really, really well. I hope you figured that out since they made the NFC Championship.
I mean, they really were dominant. Like I said, I think they were the best team in the NFL, but they really were. I mean, like I said, they were the 3rd best offense, like the 6th best defense. When you have a team like that on both sides of the ball is so fun to watch and so dominant. I mean, the Saints, you couldn't run on them. Lattimore, you couldn't throw on them. We saw Cam Jordan, players like that we're not even really talking about right here. And then offensively, you've got Brees at the peak of his powers. You've got Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. And then you've got Michael Thomas. I mean, like, the amount of weapons, the amount of people you had flying around, and you have the Superdome, which is the Saints' biggest wrinkle. Having the dome, having that kind of home field advantage. I mean, this was a team that was just bulldozing everyone.
After a shocking Week 1 shootout loss to Tampa, New Orleans rattled off a 10-game win streak, their longest run since their Super Bowl season. Breeze seemed to break records just about every week. But most importantly, the Saints clinched the NFC's top seed with 1 week to go. They tried to make things fun in the divisional round by spotting Philly 14 points in the first quarter, but New Orleans shut them out the rest of the way to return to the NFC Championship for the first time since winning it all. It's an incredible season that's at risk of being all written off thanks to a single non-call. But no field goal is guaranteed, especially one from 57 yards out.
I know he'll talk about it because, there's a lot of video left, but this is also, what also sucked about this was, so we make the kick after the no call. So we're up 23-20. And then we allow Jared Goff to get the Rams down to kick a field goal to get to overtime. Then we get the ball. So we have a chance to just finish everything in overtime. And instead of three and outing and squandering it, punting, making Goff drive again, instead of that, Breeze throws an interception. A terrible interception at that. So it was, a lot of what made this so bad was that we had repeated chances. If the defense stops Goff, we win in regulation. If Breeze can just get down to a field goal opportunity, we could win in overtime. A lot of chances were squandered even after the no call.
The fact that the Rams are in this position, or here at all, should not be taken for granted. Sean McVay showed up in LA 2 years ago. In 2017, he coached the Rams to an 11-5 season, which already deserves to be put into context. Remember how Peyton and Breeze showed up?
McVay's awesome. I'm a big McVay guy. I've always, I think he's great. Love the guy. Legitimate whiz kid, but
New Orleans and save the day. Well, for the pre-McVay Rams, it had been 14 years since their last winning season. We're talking greatest show on turf era. After Tom Brady zapped their dynastic potential, coach after coach came through with similar results. Jeff Fisher stole the spotlight of ineptitude, but it ran far deeper than him. While they floundered, McVay made a dramatic splash into the coaching pool. He worked under the elder Gruden in Tampa before teaming up with Jay Gruden. McVay moved on to Washington, where he eventually reunited with Jay and really began to move up through the...
Talk about a staff. It was also Kyle Shanahan was also in Washington. So you had McVay and Shanahan under Gruden.
Ranks. He hit offensive coordinator before he was 28 years old. His speedy rise came as the Rams grew sick of retreading the same names at head coach. LA took a chance when they made McVay the youngest head coach, not just in the league, but in the NFL's modern era. The Rams had watched McVay not only guide Washington's offense into one of the league's best, but also help develop Kirk Cousins into a potential franchise QB. The Rams needed both of those things badly. Their offense stagnated under...
What's pretty wild about Goff is at times with McVay, Goff was amazing. If you go back and watch the Rams versus the Chiefs when it was 56-55 or something like that, Goff looks better than Mahomes. Goff is dealing that game. And it's just wild to see what McVay could get out of him.
Fisher's watch. A fact made more troubling after they had used the top overall pick in 2016 on Jared Goff. The rookie quarterback mostly looked on from the bench in his first year, but when he managed to hit the field, Goff just looked unprepared. Some gambles are more necessary than others. And while this one paid out nicely in 2017, year 2 of McVay made it feel like a sure bet all along. Their offense torched the league. They raced out to 8 straight wins with Goff just hurling the ball all over the place. It helped having a runner like Todd Gurley by his side cranking out some monster rushing day.
McVay's always had this weird misconception where people think he's like this pass first, West Coast offensive guru. He's really not. McVay is a run first guy. McVay is a play action driven guy. McVay, even this video, the first thing he talks about is Goff and how much he got out of Goff. But that's not really what McVay does. McVay is much more of establishing the run, getting the run going, then working play action. What he does passing wise is pretty simple. What he asked Goff to do, what he asks his quarterbacks to do now, pretty simple. Play action, roll out, pretty much one read. It's like a levels kind of passing structure. And that's about it. But people don't talk about how good he made Todd Gurley.
Robert Woods and Brandon Cooks both had 1,200-yard seasons, which helped the Rams become the NFC's #1 offense. They put everything on display in a showdown with Kansas City.
Yeah, 54-51. This game was nuts.
In what easily became the season's best game, Goff traded touchdown passes with Patrick Mahomes before LA's defense managed to put the game away for good with their second pick of the night. Probably the sexiest win of the Rams' impressive 13-3 season.
Yeah, game was insane.
But we're here, gridlocked at 23 apiece, and in New Orleans because of a different game. These two teams met right here back in Week 9. Both offenses quickly took control of things. Kamara found the end zone on the Saints' incredibly efficient first drive. So Gurley answered with one of his own as the Rams moved the ball even more quickly. Very next drive, well, Kamara once again gave the Saints a 7-point lead. And once again, that lead lasted for exactly one Rams drive. New Orleans scored 21 straight in the second quarter, so the Rams scored 21 straight of their own, tying things up at 35 with 10 minutes to play.
What a game.
It felt like two heavyweights just leaning into every punch thrown their way on a barge floating down the Mississippi. But the Rams ran out of gas. New Orleans kicker Will Lutz drilled a 54-yarder, then Breeze found Thomas for a 72-yard game-sealing score.
Like, this is what the Saints could do. The Saints back then were, I say back then, it was 4 years ago, but back then it was like, look, we're going to score 50 points. We are not going to stop. We are not, we cannot be stopped on offense. What are you going to do? Take away Kamara? Cool, we got Thomas. Take away Thomas? Cool, we got Kamara. Take away them two, we got Ingram. Like, we can, and we have Drew Brees. You can do whatever you want, which, like I just mentioned, which makes it so brutal that, we squander the possession in overtime, where this offense, it's like all you need is a field goal, and Brees throws a pick. It's just not what this team did.
Winning the head-to-head meant the Saints held the tiebreaker for home field advantage come playoff time.
More than that, like if you told me before the game the Rams are going to score 23 points, I would have said, I feel pretty good that the Saints are going to win the game, because I don't think the Rams are going to hold us to 20 or to hold us to 23 or whatever. I think we're going to be easy win. That's just what we expected as Saints fans, which, like I just said, we were up 10-0 in the first quarter. So that means we watched 3 quarters of really kind of nothing. Like 3 quarters to only have 10 points from the Saints is a lot of bad possessions. And that's also frustrating where, like Breeze didn't have a great game this game. It's one of those things where if the Saints just do what they had done all year long, this game would have never come down to overtime or come down to that defensive pass interference.
But this also meant both teams had a taste of each other and might be able to block a few punches in a rematch. Tonight, neither offense found things as smooth as before. They did trade blows, with New Orleans scoring the first 13 points and the Rams answering 10 before halftime, but they...
See that memory? 13-10 at halftime. Unbelievable memory right there. But 13 points. So we scored 7 points after that. So, if I remember correctly, I think it was 10-0 at the end of the first quarter. So then I guess we kicked a field goal. So it's 13-0 in the second. So that means we're sitting there in the second quarter until the end of the game, and the Saints have really done absolutely nothing. So that's not fun to watch.
Actually dodged punches this time. In their first meeting, Michael Thomas had been able to do seemingly whatever he wanted. But back then, Aqib Talib hadn't been around. Now healthy for the playoffs, the Rams' top corner helped clamp down on the receiver and drastically changed the flow. Neither defense would break, but the Saints came up especially big in the fourth. Thanks to a couple of deep shots from Goff, the Rams found themselves 7 yards away from taking the lead. They chipped their way down to a 3rd and 2, but New Orleans continued to stand firm against the run, keeping C.J. Anderson out of the end zone and forcing the Rams to tie things up instead. What followed that?
God, what a team.
Well, the bad play. But the Saints did manage to take the lead with a field goal with under 2 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So, how'd we get here? Well, it's finally time to talk about this guy. Greg Zuerlein has your normal kicker story, in that it's so not normal. His college career began at University of Nebraska,
Greg the Leg.
Omaha. But after Zuerlein
Guy
had been
can
kicking
boot
there
it.
for 3 seasons, they canceled the football program entirely. He then went to the equally well-known powerhouse, Missouri Western State University, where he just kicked the living piss out of the ball.
Let's get through the Greg
Those numbers
Zuerlein
were
biography,
good enough to be
please.
drafted in the 6th round. Like everyone else on the Rams, Zuerlein could only do as much as a Jeff Fisher squad allowed, but he did manage to show off that big leg.
You could boot it.
As a rookie, he kicked the second longest overtime game winner ever, 3 yards shy of Sebastian Janikowski's 57-yard record. He also drilled a field goal from 60 that year, a mark he topped a few years later. Once McVay came along, just like everyone else, Zuerlein profited. He got more chances to use that beautiful leg, often from
that's a hell of a
long
year.
way out.
That's
and
a
found himself at
great
the Pro
year.
Bowl. A groin injury held him back a bit in 2018, but he still proved capable of hitting from range, including a 56-yarder before halftime the first time the Rams visited New Orleans. And tonight, Zuerlein's already delivered one big kick for LA. After the Saints were forced to leave some time on the clock.
So this is brutal. Like, you tell me you got Jared Goff. He's got to go down in a minute 41 against a Saints defense who has been good all year long in the dome, and it's as loud as possible. And he's got to go get this field goal. Like that, if you give me that situation 10 times, I'm expecting Goff to not do it. Like at least 7 of those 10 times.
The Rams still found themselves in another hole. A minute 41 and just one timeout left. LA needed Goff to pick up some ground. Starting off a bit hit or miss, he found Woods for a nice chunk, which put them at least in range for Greg the Leg, but also forced them to use their final timeout. They managed to inch 3 yards closer, but that's all they got. Zuerlein trotted out for a 48-yard high-pressure kick, which he nailed, obviously. In overtime, everyone got a fresh start. The Saints began with the ball, which gave the refs an opportunity to say sorry via actually calling pass interference. Breeze had the chance to march his team down for a win, to make none of the
like this pick, like Breeze is, 2nd and 16, Breeze is getting hit, falling back, and this ball just flutters. It's just one of those gross picks where, if he takes the sack or... Because even here, it's like, just punt it. Just punt. The defense is good enough. Just punt the ball.
last 30 minutes matter. But instead, buddy, what are you doing? His first interception of the game at easily the worst time. The Rams got the ball just shy of midfield and picked up 15 yards, but the Saints D didn't give up anymore. That presented LA with this chance. 57 yards. Yes, if there's any kicker in the league you'd want trying this, it's Zuerlein, but it's still a huge gamble.
It really is, because obviously, you have to kick it. That's why the kicker's there. But if you miss this, Breeze is 20 yards away from, the Saints winning the game, basically, or having you're just shortening the field so much. 57 is nothing to scoff at, even though it's in a dome. Damn. This sucks to watch. Not gonna lie to y'all. This is brutal.
A miss here would give the Saints the ball at their 47, meaning they wouldn't need much to get into field goal range themselves. And Breeze doesn't have a second mistake in him if he gets another chance. He and Peyton have gotten so close to their return to the Super Bowl, taking everyone in the Superdome on quite the journey as part of the process. But for those Saints fans watching, the freshest of wounds could potentially solidify into one more postseason scar. For LA, though, this gamble would pay off incredibly well. It would cement their decision to go in a different direction as an amazing call. Just 2 years removed from mediocrity being the best case scenario, the Rams' aggressive nature makes this feel like the only way. 57 yards out, a trip to the Super Bowl on the line. Welcome to a moment in history.
That snap, the kick is good. Rams win it and on to Super Bowl.
So immediately after the game, when this happened, I mean, it was like I hinted at this earlier. You know, it was scary to be in the dome. And, you know, I remember drinks were just being thrown everywhere. People were just cursing each other out. People were screaming. Nobody wanted to leave. You know, Rams fans were, I mean, I don't know how they made it out of the stadium. You know, the amount of just hate and anger. Because that's another thing, too. Like, when you lose a game, a lot of the times, the overwhelming feeling is sadness. You're sad that you lost. You're sad that the season's over. This one was anger. Angry at the refs, angry at, you know, the NFL, angry at whatever. So when the predominant emotion is anger in these situations, it's bad. And walking out of the dome, there was just so much carnage. Like, people were destroying signs and anything they could. They was knocking stuff over, throwing stuff, like I said, drinks and whatever they could get their hands on. You know, going down the elevators and the escalators and going outside. And I remember walking through the city back to the car, and the city almost looked like it was like a movie or something, where you're expecting to see like explosions and smoke billowing out of buildings, and you know, it was just a very eerie feeling. And I remember the drive back, you know, it was silent for probably 40 minutes. Then the days leading afterwards were bad. I mean, I remember like going to work the next day and just not even like feeling like someone had died or something. I mean, it felt, and everyone was just down. You know, I remember I went and ate with a couple friends a couple days after, and we were all still down. And the worst part for me at that time was we were robbed of that like 2-week Super Bowl hype, you know, where if the Saints would have been in the Super Bowl, the 2 weeks leading up to it would have been so much fun, you know, watching those players during Super Bowl week and the interviews and all that stuff. And then the Super Bowl watch parties, like just how much fun it would have been, maybe even like being in New Orleans for it or things like that. And it's just so different than a normal loss, because no one can say that we weren't wrongly, you know, we weren't wronged. This was not something that should have happened. This was a failure on the NFL. This was a failure on the referees. This was a complete failure all around. And, you know, it robbed the Saints fans of something. It robbed the NFL of something, where, you know, it robbed us of Breeze versus Brady in the Super Bowl. It gave us a 10-3, it gave us a lackluster Super Bowl. It was just, you know, obviously then they changed the rules to where you can review pass interference so this doesn't happen again. You know, so this did kind of alter the NFL. But this was just such a terrible, terrible moment. Definitely the worst moment I've had as a Saints fan or in the dome or anything like that. It was just, you know, to have it end like that, to have it end when you're wronged, is just the worst possible situation. It's so much worse than losing. It's so much worse than a walk-off Hail Mary or anything like that. I mean, the no call hurts way worse than the Minnesota Miracle. The Minnesota Miracle was a play. You know, it happens. It was a Hail Mary, missed the tackle. It is what it is. They earned it as much as we blew it. But this was just highway robbery, you know, and when stakes are this high, you don't want, you know, the NFL or failure with a referee or whatever to have this kind of an impact. But first time, obviously I've not watched this video until right now, and reliving this, like I can feel all the emotions from that day, and it was just such a painful time. But let me know in the comments below. Do y'all remember this? Were y'all Saints fans, Rams fans? Do y'all remember the moment where you were? Any of that stuff? What do you remember from that fateful day? Were you in the Dome like me? Were you in New Orleans? Were you in Los Angeles? Where were you? What was happening? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching, and I will see you in the next video.